on them fella in the big house to take care of we if we fall sick. Oh no, sir. But thank God, there was always a man or a woman in the group of we people that knew all the herbs, all the spices, all the roots and the trees, everything in the river and everything outside the river they for use for take care of we body. And we call them fella the root doctor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with the voodoo doctor. The root doctor, they knew how to cook and put them herbs together. Sea muckle, pine top, red oak bark, white oak bark, tarrywood, snake root, ooh, fiddler crab, fig tree, peach tree. If anybody in the Gullah family had a toothache, they would blow smoke from a pipe in your tooth or in your ear to cure you of the toothache or earache. If you had been bleeding profusely from a cut or a wound, they would throw a half a teaspoon of sugar in the wound to stop the bleeding. If you had a deep cut or wound on your body, after they cleaned that wound out real good, they would go to the corner of the house and grab the spider web and put in the wound and band that wound down with a clean rag, and they call it knitting the wound back together. Today we call it stitching. Gullah. If you had stepped on a nail or cut your foot, they would soak your foot in a basin of water and physics salt. And then they would dry it off and take a copper penny and a piece of butt sweet, tie it on, put it on the wound and tie it down with a clean rag, and they call it drawing the poison out. Today we call it tetanus shot. Gullah of people. If an infant was born with a protruding navel, they used to use a $1, place it on the navel. During my time it was a 50-cent piece. They would band it down really, really tight, and you would wear it like that for several months or several weeks. And when you removed it, the navel would no longer be protruding. If you had whooping cough, they would take the fiddler crab, boil the fiddler crab down to a tea, and give you that to drink, and that would cure you of a whooping cough. Gullah. If you had a bad cold, congestion in your chest, head cold, stopped up, they would give you a teaspoon of sugar and 2 to 3 drops of turpentine on that teaspoon of sugar and give it to you for you to hold in your mouth, not for swallow. And you would hold it so many seconds, and then when you spit it out, after a couple of seconds, everything would be draining out and coming up. You'd be spitting it up, all of the coal and the phlegm that had you bogged down. There's a plant here in South Carolina. It's illegal now, but we called it life everlasting. The Gullah people call it life everlasting tea. You can find it anywhere in the woods. It's probably plentiful here. But they outlawed it because someone tried to smoke it. But trust me, in the Gullah family, come flu and cold season, our fall or winter months, you will be able to find the life everlasting. They boil it into a tea. They add lemon juice, and a lot of us go to the spirit store and we add 2 to 3 drops of some spirits into the concoction, and then by morning, when they cover you up, by morning you will have sweated out so much of the cold and the flu that you can catch, when you wring your night clothes out, you can catch the water with a bucket. Gullah. Again, it's been outlawed in South Carolina because someone has tried to smoke it, but in the Gullah Geechee family, everybody knows where to find the life everlasting when they need it. Gullah. There's a ritual that they did for mothers who were going through childbirth. They would put an axe or a knife under the bed, supposedly to cut the birth pain. Gullah people. If you had a ringworm, they pulled the fig off the fig tree, any minor skin infection, and the milky stem of the fig they rubbed on the ringworm. Moss, they put tree moss even today in their shoes to lower high blood pressure. Gullah. If you were on a bed of affliction, and all of the concoctions and the remedies that they put together did not seem to be working, they would sing songs in hope of our Lord releasing the bondage that you were under. So someone on a bed of affliction, you may hear people singing, angels praying round me bed, me and angels praying, angels praying round me bed, me and the angels praying, all around me bed, all around me bed, all around me bed, me and the angels praying, angels singing round me bed. We would sing those songs and several other songs in hopes and prayer that that person would rise up off of that bed of affliction, and a lot of times it happened. Then at times when it didn't, after emancipation, we had what you call societies, named after biblical characters. Ruth Society, Daniel Society, and Ezekiel Society. And they operated more like, I guess, the Eastern Stars did, but our specific job as a society back then was to sit with the sick, have some people in your community sit with the sick round the clock, and if the person died, sure that that person had a decent pine box for burial. Now, if you've ever been to one of our funerals, you may have seen this ritual and not understand it. The last time it was done, I was at a family funeral in New York, and what happens is anytime there is an elder that dies in the home, grandmother, great grandmother, great grand uncle, aunt, and you were living in the home with your elders as a child, you would see us passing children over the person's casket at the grave site. And the child would be passed over the casket before the casket is lowered in the ground. Why? This is a West African tradition brought through slavery all the way over here and is continuing today. They believe that as a child, if you grew up in the home with your extended family and one of those extended family members passed away, they called it a traveling spirit. And they believed that that spirit didn't necessarily leave the home right away. So what they would do is they would cover the mirrors in the home with black cloth, or if they couldn't find the black cloth, it would just be covered with cloth. Supposedly, anything to allow that spirit to move on. And a lot of times they believed that the spirit did not want to move on, and what they would do, they would take up residence in young children, causing sleepless nights, causing problems with behavior. So to ensure that this wouldn't happen, they would pass the children over the casket to another family member before the casket is lowered in the grave. And truly so, if a young mother or a young father passed away and they left behind a lot of small children, you would see that done. Gullah. There's a story about 3 years ago